November 1940, the Mediterranean Sea was on fire with tension. The British Royal Navy faced the powerful Italian fleet, locked in a silent standoff that could decide the future of Europe. At the heart of Italy's naval power stood Taranto, a heavily defended harbour filled with battleships, cruisers and destroyers. To strike it seemed impossible, but the British had a daring plan that would change naval warfare forever. This was not just another attack, it was a revolution in strategy. Using fragile, slow biplanes armed with torpedoes, Britain planned to cripple Italy's fleet in one single night. The world would soon witness the first all-aircraft naval strike in history, a blueprint that even Japan would later study before launching its own assault on Pearl Harbor. This is the story of courage, innovation, and risk, the night that turned the tide of naval warfare, the Battle of Taranto. Before the world was plunged into its deadliest war, a new battlefield had already emerged: the sky. After World War I, nations realized that whoever ruled the air would rule the future. In the 1920s and 1930s, engineers and strategists raced to build faster and deadlier aircraft. This wasn't just progress, it was preparation for the next great war. Germany, under Adolf Hitler, secretly rebuilt its air force, the Luftwaffe, in defiance of the Treaty of Versailles. With the Messerschmitt Bf 109 and the Stuka dive bomber, Germany developed the lightning-fast tactics that would shock the world, the Blitzkrieg. Meanwhile, Britain, the United States, and Japan were also advancing their air technologies, knowing that the next war would not only be fought on land or sea, but across the skies. As the 1930s ended, nations stood on the brink, their engines roaring, their pilots ready, and the clouds above waiting to become the next battlefield of humanity. After early defeats in the war, the British Royal Navy knew it needed a bold move to change the balance in the Mediterranean. Italy's fleet in Taranto was a direct threat to British control of the sea routes, and something had to be done. By the summer of 1940, planning began for a daring air attack called Operation Judgment, with the goal of crippling the Italian fleet inside its own harbour before it could leave port. Taranto was one of the most heavily protected naval bases in Europe, surrounded by anti-aircraft guns, searchlights, and barrage balloons. Yet the British were determined. Intelligence from aerial photographs and Turkish and Greek sources revealed crucial details about the harbour layout and ship positions. But there was a major problem. The water was too shallow, and ordinary torpedoes would hit the seabed. British engineers worked day and night to design modified torpedoes with wooden fins to slow their fall and strike accurately in shallow waters. The operation was practiced under complete secrecy and silence. Aircrews trained for night takeoffs, low-altitude torpedo runs, and precision strikes, fully aware it could be a one-way mission. By November 1940, everything was ready. The world had no idea that history's first aircraft naval strike was about to begin, and the quiet harbour of Taranto would soon erupt into flames. Night fell over the Mediterranean on November 11, 1940. The sea was calm, the sky dark, but above the waves, shadows were moving. The British fleet, Air Arm, had launched its most daring mission yet, to waves of fairy swordfish torpedo bombers, flying low and silent toward the Italian harbour of Taranto. Each biplane carried either a torpedo, a bomb, or a flare, and their engines hummed quietly against the cold night air. Below them, the Italian fleet slept inside what was believed to be an impenetrable fortress: battleships, cruisers, and destroyers, all tightly packed and guarded by anti-aircraft guns and barrage balloons. But the British pilots knew there would be no second chance. They descended lower, skimming just above the sea, some barely 20 feet above the water. The first wave released flares to light the harbour, turning the dark waters into a glowing battlefield. Torpedoes dropped and streaked through the shallow depths, striking their targets with devastating accuracy. Explosions ripped through the night. Flames rose from the battleships Conte, Di Cavour, and Latoria. The second wave came minutes later, finishing what the first had begun. Despite heavy anti-aircraft fire, most of the British planes made it back. In less than 2 hours, half of Italy's pride had been crippled. The attack on Taranto wasn't just a victory, it was a message to the world that even the strongest fleets could fall from the skies. After the smoke cleared over Taranto, the world realized something extraordinary had happened. For the first time in history, an entire naval fleet had been crippled, not by battleships or submarines, but by aircraft launched from the sea. The British Royal Navy had proven that the age of massive warships dominating the oceans was over. A new era had begun, the era of air power across the world. Military strategists watched in disbelief. Among them were the Japanese, who studied every detail of the Taranto attack. Just 1 year later, they would apply those very lessons at Pearl Harbor, a strike that would pull the United States into the Second World War. Taranto was more than a victory, it was a warning to the world. It showed that courage, innovation, and precision could change the course of history. The brave pilots who flew through the night did not just destroy ships, they rewrote the future of naval warfare. This was the night that changed how wars would be fought forever, the legacy of Taranto, where history took flight. The Taranto raid clearly demonstrated that aircraft carriers and well-planned aerial attacks could be far more effective than traditional battleships. The attack was not only a major setback for the Italian Navy, but it also changed the entire approach to naval strategy. British meticulous planning, the element of surprise, and clever engineering modifications proved that naval power at sea wasn't just about massive battleships, it could also come from the skies. This event reshaped the principles of future naval warfare and, in some ways, foreshadowed the lessons later seen at Pearl Harbor in the Pacific. Taranto showed that good intelligence, careful planning, and innovative tactics could significantly weaken even the strongest enemy forces. And that's exactly why, in our next video, we'll shift our focus to the Pacific Ocean. We'll explore how these lessons were applied by the Japanese military, and how the morning of Pearl Harbor shocked the entire world. So get ready, because in the next video, we'll uncover the shocking realities faced by Imperial Japanese pilots and naval officers, and the mistakes that would forever be remembered in history.